Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It's a very rainy, very miserable Tuesday afternoon. There's rain coming from one of our streams, no idea which way it's coming from, but either way, welcome back to another video. The man alongside me doesn't need an introduction, but I'm going to do it anyway. You will know him as Nedum Onuoha, former Manchester City player, over 100 appearances for City, England under 21 international, of course, and a wonderful, if I don't say so myself, pundit for ESPN. You were on BBC the other day as well, weren't you, actually? I was
Yeah,
texting you
you can
after we
find me.
sharing that. You're everywhere,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
You get
That means
around.
if you're next to Shearer, I guess that means you made it. No, isn't that the way it works?
Well, yes. Well, there you go. You've made it officially. So Alan's the big dog in here, really.
Yeah,
So these days,
yeah,
he
he
really
is.
is.
Yeah, he is.
I like him.
Unfortunately,
Unfortunately,
I think I was the fourth microphone for that piece, and I was basically in Lancashire for this game in Yorkshire. But at the end of the day, I got some points across, and it was good to watch City win.
No, it was good fun, man. It was good fun. So Nedum, of course, massive Man City fan as well, which is the most important thing. An actual blue. And to be honest, I asked Nedum today because what better way to talk about a current Manchester City right back than a guy who's played there for Manchester City Football Club as well. You played a few games at right back, didn't you, Nedum?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's actually where I started
Yeah.
because Kevin Keegan was trying to find a way to get me in the team and be better on the ball. But I'm not going to move Sylvain Distin nor Richard Dunn out of the centre. So, there's a spot for you. I took it and started off a few years there, and it was good fun. Obviously, not as much fun as Rico's having now,
No.
but it was fun nonetheless. Yeah.
Keegan, I forgot you played under him. He was great, wasn't he, Kev? Did you like him?
Yeah, I really liked him. I don't think everybody did, but as a young player, to have somebody who was a former England manager come and say, "I think you're a good player and I can make you better, and I want to select you," that does mean a lot. And I saw him when City played Newcastle last season. It was really nice because he basically started my career. Like, what a thing to say. Kevin Keegan started my career.
Oh, he's a legend.
And that's, it's class. Yeah, it was awesome.
No, everyone loves Kevin Keegan. I mean, the football that season as well. It was wonderful. So I guess you were involved in that team, weren't you? Well, you weren't involved in that season, were you?
No, not that one.
Yeah,
no.
yeah. But that
the
one,
next one, yeah.
Yeah, the one after that one before, with obviously that was when we played like the wing backs and like Shawnee Wright had just broke through, and I love that team, man. That was a wonderful team.
Yeah.
You were watching from the sidelines, weren't you? As a
yeah, and even like say Bernabei and Berkovic, for as good as they were, I'll tell you the thing that sort of makes them even seem even better is that season when they were there is when I first started training with the first team. So you go from playing with people your own age, which is basically like 16, 17-year-old football, to all of a sudden you've got like geniuses doing stuff and you're like, what's just happened there? And you can't figure it out. You've got no experience at all, but somehow they just thread a ball between you and somebody else. And now you're losing games and stuff. It was special to be around them.
I'm not trying to remember that team. So Stuart Pearce was playing, wasn't he? I think it was like was he there that one?
Just about.
And then it was obviously it was Bernabei, Berkovic, Tiato, Wright Phillips. Was that when we had like One Chop and Huckabee and Goater as well and all that kind of stuff? Was that
it would have been, yeah.
Yeah,
it would have been. Yeah,
and that was just such a fun team. And then was he playing centre back for us? I can't remember.
It would have been Dunny, wouldn't it?
Was it Dunny?
Was it not Dunny? Yeah, Dunny was there for a long time. Yeah,
right back briefly, didn't he, as a wing back? And
he did. Yeah,
that was fun. To be fair, that was fun. Lovely stuff. Things have changed since then, just a little bit.
A little bit, yeah, just a little bit. You could say.
So you obviously played right back from Man City as well at one point.
Yeah.
Sylvain Distin was good as well, wasn't he? By the way, he was a really good footballer.
Exceptional. Yeah.
Could he have made it like a higher level with all due respect to him? His style today was so different compared to them, wasn't it?
Sorry, 100%. 100%. Like I think there are lots of players who were really good, but they're really good for where they were. And this concept of like reaching your ceiling can only happen if your ceiling can be put in a place whereby the environment's the best that it is.
Yeah.
Say like for as good as Rico has been, as good as he is, how many of the clubs around the country require him to do what he's been doing for City and do so well? Where you come inside and you are a midfielder, like you look at Zinchenko do it for Arsenal, but outside of that, most of those roles are actually quite traditional.
Yeah.
So if you saw him playing right back for somebody else, you'd think he's good, but you wouldn't be as impressed as say you have been in those games which he's played since the start of the World Cup. Since the World Cup ended, rather.
I've got a general theory about with some footballers, it's not always the case. There are some footballers who are just special. They're genuinely special. They could go to any team and be wonderful. Sergio Aguero, David Silva, and so on.
Yeah.
But there are some occasionally, because what prompted this the other day was someone asking me on a stream, what do you think of Christian Pulisic? And I was like, he's a really talented footballer. And I feel like he's the kind of person, if he was in the right environment with the right manager at the time, could look like an elite level player. But then there's a lot of circumstantialness in football, isn't it? Where you're lucky to be in the right place at the right time and your game can be lifted. Because do you think that's something that has some weight to it, that theory, where a player could look one day world class under the right manager? And Mason Mount is a good example of someone who's playing great right now, but I think he's a brilliant footballer, but he just isn't working right now for him.
Yeah, for sure. I think sort of managers, systems, form, and things like that can go a long, long way. Do you know when you have a say forward that likes to come inside. Well, if you have a fullback that likes to bomb forward, before you know it, it's a perfect partnership. And the only thing greater than playing well individually is playing well as a collective, because then you can really take teams apart from that standpoint. And Pulisic he's a really good player, but he's also more of an individual, someone that maybe wants to roam and try and do things a little bit more off the cuff, takes a few more touches than some people like. Well, if you're in a team whereby everything's 1-2 touch and so on, they'll probably struggle. But then you put him in a team whereby he has that ability to go and float, roam, and be free. It looks exceptional again. So I think that all that stuff does matter, but you do need to be recruited for the right place at the right time as well.
Exactly, man. Which leads us obviously onto Rico Lewis, who's a man right now in the right place at the right time. Obviously, to do what he's done already, I mean, he wasn't even 18 years old. He was 17 years old when he got into the team, Manchester City. I mean, that's impressive at any level, isn't it? 17 years old, getting, and like, just how big of an achievement is it to break into Manchester City's team, even just as an appearance as a 17-year-old?
Yeah, I think it's enormous, because when you think about the fact that they've probably got other age groups which they could go through before they're actually expected to be in the first team, I think it says a lot. And then when you look at the squad that City have, the quality that they have, to be training, let's call it what it is, to be training with City's first team as an academy player is a huge achievement to start with, because of the depth that they have. So to then be able to make a squad, to then be selected to play. But for me, the bigger thing was, say in that game against Leeds after he played, I finally got the chance to ask a question of Pep Guardiola, and I was fanboying a little bit. I was like, that's the guy. You know what I mean? Like, that's the guy right there. Yeah. And they were asking him just like questions about stuff which didn't really feel that big a deal. But the thing that felt a bigger deal to me was the fact that there was an 18-year-old who just come and he played right back and was centre midfield for Man City away at Leeds United. And I know myself, going to Ellen Road is a really tough thing to do. The way that they play now, the crowd that when they get there, and this was after the restart as well, and it's the last game after seeing another side win, but it was exceptional. And Pep said that Rico was one of the most important players in terms of how City attacked in a game. That's as an 18-year-old in a team full of stars. I mean, you look at it in that match, he's there coming to receive the ball from Spanish international Rodri. He's playing the ball to England international Stones. He's playing the ball in the half space to Kevin De Bruyne, one of the best midfielders to ever play the game. Like, he's knitting all that together. If you were to think of a position which is incredibly important, I'd have that down as that. But he did it. He was exceptional. And he looked comfortable in the game. And a lot of that was to do with the way that he played in that role. So I think it's a huge achievement. And in fairness, he brought my name back into the conversation, because after he played that game, I think he was the third youngest player to ever make the debut for City.
Oh, really?
Behind the number one was Micah, and then number two was me.
Oh, really?
So I thought,
what's that about, man?
Yeah, so, you know what I mean. We just get sent out there, don't we? But yeah, it was incredible. It was an incredible performance, and it got to a point now where people are seeing him coming on in the game against Chelsea, and you expected him to make a big difference. This is somebody who hasn't played for 4 or 5 years. But interestingly as well, to bring the balance into it, I thought Kyle Walker was exceptional a couple of days ago.
He was.
I think he reminded us of the fact that, he got injured against Man United, and that was a long time ago. And in that time, City have been good, but it felt like something was missing. And maybe that's because Akanji was playing right back, Stones was playing right back. But Kyle Walker is he's the guy in it, isn't he? So to have Rico there is incredible, but also to have Kyle, seems like the position is going to be in good hands for a little while now.
Well, there's a few things that bounce off on that. Obviously, you talked about to do that 18 years old, to have that compliment from Guardiola. I mean, how would you cope with that at that age? I mean, there must be a tendency for that to go to your head, or not a tendency. Yeah. I mean, a temptation. Sorry, for that to be just to blow your head. I mean, do you have to be a certain kind of person? Have you seen it before, where a player gets so big so quickly?
Yeah, of course. You can see it all the time, because for the players who have that moment and have that bit of praise, well, what did it look like in 2-3 years' time? Because for some, they're sort of dying off that for as long as they can. The person that scores a free kick once, and then all of a sudden everyone believes they're going to score a free kick for the rest of the career, but they never manage to do so. Because they get ahead of themselves. Yeah. I didn't know we talked about the Saudi League anymore. I know what you're saying. But no, I think it'd be the best time to be at Man City, not only because of the success that they have, but the mentalities of the people who are there. So whether they win everything this season or win nothing, the mentality is still to be humble and work hard for your teammates. And if you don't, then someone else is desperate to take the job that you have right there. Yeah. So for him, if it starts to affect his play in a negative manner, every single person on that team can call him out. The staff can call him out. The manager can call him out, and people will see it. So you have to understand that, this is a great starting point. This is a foundation, but that's all it is. This isn't your career now,
Yeah.
unless you decide to make it go that way. And I think he seems humble enough, and everybody speaks so highly of him that I expect him to, to take it in his stride, maybe deal with the disappointment of maybe not playing some of the games between now and the end of the season, but know that the next season is potentially the most important one he's had so far, because now there's a level of expectation that comes with his possibilities as such.
But that's true, isn't it? Right now, there's no expectation whatsoever. I mean, he's creating that every single time he gets on the pitch
Yeah.
because, I mean, Guardiola's creating it too. I mean, we go back to the substitution for in the Chelsea game when he brought him on. I mean, there's a few ways to look at that as well. I mean, obviously, that the pressure on him then to play well when Kyle Walker and Joao Cancelo come off, two world-class fullbacks there. There's a lot of pressure. It's a two-part question, really. I mean, like, how does that feel? I mean, are you then more nervous about making a mistake and so on because they've just come off? And how does it feel then if you're Kyle Walker and Cancelo? Do you think they'll be particularly bothered? Because there's a slight humbling to that, I would argue. Only slightly.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll start with the latter. And that's the thing. When you see youngsters come through and you're more of a senior player, like, they are in theory trying to play in the position that you're in.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you have the history of the manager, you have the history of the football club, you have the history of your own career. And for as much as Rico's playing, I wouldn't say he's ahead of somebody else.
Yeah.
I think given the fact that there was the World Cup, people are away for those times in Cancelo and in Kyle Walker, then the way that they're being reintegrated as such is a bit different to say if this was just a regular mid-season point where those guys got dropped and then Rico came into the side. So I think that's different. But then in terms of Rico coming on in that match, like, everyone could see in that first half, felt like something needed to change. And some people will say tactics, but I don't think the tactics changed that much. But I think the quality of play did, and understanding, and what he brings from being somebody who comes in from right back positions into midfield is that it allows more of your attacking players to be ahead of the ball. Whereas I think sometimes if you bring one of the midfielders back there, then the creativity is a little bit different. But I think when you get the nod from the manager to come on at half time, it's like, I personally would be less nervous than if I got the nod to start ahead of those two, because he trusts you. He knows that he can go out there and make a difference, and he's not going to go out. He's not saying go out there and do 10 things which he's never seen you do before. He knows that you're technically, even though you're new, you're in good form.
Yeah.
And he wants you to go and continue that good form. And now here's a chance. Hey, just go and play at Stamford Bridge. This is a great opportunity for you. It's like, go and taste this, go and experience this. And again, Pep, I think, would not have. He'd want Rico to do well, and he believed that he could do well, but he wouldn't expect him to do well.
Yeah.
Because he understands he's brought through so many young players before, and there's no doubt that in his mind that's how he saw Rico, but felt like Rico's assets in that game were going to be something which would help the team go forward, and it definitely proved to be the case.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was remarkably impressive, and he did change the game. And Guardiola said he has the ability to make his teammates play better, which is, when you've got, once again, the quality of the players that you've got around him, to be that guy already, that young.
Yeah, it's class.
It probably would terrify me if I'm being honest. I mean, it would be. I mean, because then I would be feeling the weight of expectation a little bit, and then I guess I'd also be a little bit nervous about what comes next. Then, because obviously when you play that much football, all of a sudden Kyle Walker's still the man. It's very possible that Rico Lewis sits on the bench for a while now, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. How do you cope with that then after playing so much football and so on? Does it take a little? Obviously, it takes patience and so on, but the development it was rocketing all of a sudden. Does it stall then? How do you cope with that?
I think there might be a level of disappointment, but it's like, you've got examples around you of people who didn't start every single game, and you've got someone in Phil Foden who's one of the best players in the world, who went through a process at the age that Rico's at now, whereby he wasn't playing every single week, yet still here he is in this moment. And you look at it and you can be disappointed, but sometimes you look and you sort of say, well, who's ahead of me?
Yeah.
Was Kyle Walker. Kyle Walker, like England international, multiple Premier League winner. I think he was captain the other day, possibly. He's not a mug. The manager's not out to get you. He's trying to sort of teach you about the way the game works. I think just to be able to spend time with those players and to be seeing what they go through to try and be as successful as they are, that's a huge privilege in itself. But I think the big thing for me is, for the games where Rico's on the bench now, if something needs to change in the game, the manager will look on the bench and see him and know what he can do.
Yeah.
So even though, as I say, he might not be starting as many games, potentially, because we never know with Pep, we never know. He might not be starting as many games as we anticipate because Kyle Walker is back now as such. you have someone who can be a difference maker on the bench, and he just so happens to be 18 years of age, and he's a right back / defensive midfielder. So it's nice. It's a nice spot to be in.
You just touched on the defensive midfielder thing. A fella called Jack in the comments said, "Do you think Lewis actually stays at right back, or can you see him as a sort of Gundogan role when he plays as the inverted right back? Can you see a potential like midfield role for him as a more traditional midfield role for him in the future?"
Do you know what? Anything is possible. I think he can develop his game, but I think that sort of midfield defender that can play right back and go into centre midfield, I think that is key. I think he's good at being basically the lead up with the ball. I don't know what he's like higher up, waiting for the ball to come to him.
Yeah,
he's very good at sort of bringing the game into other people. I think some of the people like Gundogan and the like, I think there's some games where people think Gundogan's quiet. Well, he's just sitting in the half spaces, waiting for the ball to arrive to him, whilst trusting other people to move the ball side to side. Mm-hmm. And I think when Gundogan played as well as he did, I think it was 2 seasons ago, some of that stuff was arriving late without the ball. Yeah. He wouldn't necessarily initiate the attack, but he would be a key part of it. And I think Rico is probably someone who's better when the whole game's in front of them as opposed to all around them. But he's 18. Like, in 10 years' time, for all we know, he might be a left winger. Who knows? Like, this is the way football works.
He is playing with the Pep, so who knows?
Yeah, anything's possible. One thing for sure is that under Pep Guardiola and with the squad that they have now, he'll be learning enough to be able to essentially do anything. And if he ends up playing somewhere else, then you know that he's going to be incredible in that position. Like, I hope he continues to develop. I hope he works hard. He listens to those around him, because that environment's special. And to add to it, I had this epiphany the other day, and I think it's one of the reasons why I think City are just so good. So the squad is like a mixed age. There's some people who are older, some people who are younger, but the older ones aren't really old. So you look at De Bruyne, Gundogan, I think they're like 31, 32 maybe.
But interestingly, do you remember those ages?
Yeah, I know, yeah. Barely remember that. But with those guys, they're doing the coaching badges and the like. So here you're on with one of the best coaches ever on the sideline, and now you've got players who are learning to coach at a time when they're being coached by one of the greatest ever. So when you see the game and with the coaching badges and stuff, you have to learn how to communicate to a bunch of players about teaching them what they need to know about you and your strategy, you and the training sessions, you and your mentality. So those guys now, they're also on the field and they're around you. So the coach coaches it from the side. You've got 2 players on the field who see the game from 2 different perspectives, one as a player and one as a potential coach as well.
Basically, you already had a bunch of world-class players. You had a world-class coach who's teaching world-class players how to hopefully be a world-class coach. So you've got a whole bunch of proteges.
It'd be perfect.
There's educators everywhere for him.
Why would you, like, if Kevin De Bruyne or Ilkay Gundogan say something to you about what's going on in the game, like, you can almost be 100% sure it's perfectly valid, because, like, from a coaching standpoint, some people can play, and some people can play after finish playing and coach. But the coaching bit, because those 2 guys, they won't want to be playing just long ball football somewhere where it's like play the percentages. They'll see the game in a different way to what lots of players have done before. So for them to be able to say, yeah, it's this, it's just a little bit of this or a little bit of that. Like, in, say, 3-4 years' time, maybe those guys will be coaching people the same age as Rico Lewis. So for perspective, when he's out there on the field, the advice he's getting from them, it's invaluable, because he's both playing with them and learning from them at the same time.
He does strike you as someone who takes it all in as well, doesn't he? You can tell, he's a little teacher's pet, and that's a good thing. And I'm trying to say, I asked you the first time we did a video together, which is probably pushing 2 years ago now anyway. And I touched on coaching with you. Like, have you still definitely not going into coaching? Or like
1,000% not involved, yeah. Every time I sort of think about it, it just confirms it further. Like today, you said it's lashing down with rain. Imagine having an outdoors job where you got to go and stand there and just watch people run around.
You can chat shit on the internet instead, and go on TV.
Well, this is true. But yeah, I get it, and I understand the value I could bring to coaching. I think tactically I understand things pretty well, and as some people might have seen from punditry, I try and be fair and reasonable about everything that's going on. Yeah. But as soon as the game's over and I just go to my house and I don't have to worry about it again, like, that's such a nice feeling. I don't ever want to lose that.
Like this whole, like, get home, put the car keys down, just chill on the sofa and don't worry about
just
this
relax.
Guy's got an injury, this guy's got that, and I've got
when does the transfer window close? Oh, what time's the staff meeting tomorrow? No.
Oh,
school drop off, then live life.
Night, drinking. Did you hear that? And I've got to deal with it. You've got to say something, because I'm not dealing with it, because I'm the manager.
Absolutely not.
No, none of that stuff. Just talk about Rico Lewis being brilliant instead, because it's much more fun, isn't it?
Thank you. Yes, exactly.
exactly. I mean, obviously, there's something you can relate to as well. Rico is, according to many reports, a Manchester City fan as well. You know, like you, of course, shared that feeling. You're a City fan. You broke through to the first team. Does that change the experience for you? You know, as a young footballer? Because I always say personally, I think football's more enjoyable when there are fans of your team in your team. I don't know. I don't know if it's even tangible, but it feels emotionally tangible to me. That doesn't make any sense, but I know what I mean by that. Like, it feels, does it make a difference for the players?
I think it depends what the team is, because say me coming through at City when we didn't score a goal at home for 4 months, like that's pretty stressful. All the stress that the fans were feeling, like,
Stuart,
you know what I mean? All the stress that you were feeling on the sidelines, I was kind of feeling it on the pitch. You know, those were the times as well where we weren't exactly winning Manchester derbies and the like. I remember every time we'd lose one of those, like all of them basically. I'd basically just be in my house for the week till the next game, outside of training. And that can be miserable. But then when you're looking at this version of City, who win the way that they do, who offer some of the best football that's ever been seen.
Phil Foden scored a hat-trick against United.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Like, imagine that's like career peak almost. I scored a hat-trick for Man City at home against Manchester United.
Every WhatsApp group ever, just you with the match ball. You know what I mean? Like, you win every story, can't you?
Exactly. If you were to ask City fans, which game would you love to play really well in and score a hat-trick in? Oh, I'd love to score a hat-trick against Man United at home and like battle them, score 6 against them. Well, there you go. There you go, Phil. So yeah, the fun part does play a thing in it. I think as you get older, you can still be a fan, but it levels off a bit.
Yeah.
Because you realize that not everybody in a football club anywhere is like 100% the same feeling wise as a fan who's from the city, who supported it for generations, who grew up with their dad supporting or their mum supporting or live near the stadium. Like, that's different, but they're still all obsessed about winning. They really want to win for their team, and their team is everything. They might not feel the sort of feeling of what it is to be blue based on being at Wembley in 99 or something.
Yeah.
But they know what it is to be blue in this world right now. So yeah, from a fan perspective, I think it'll be great for him. He's probably somebody who's seen some of those players from a distance before. So for him to now be on the field, seeing them all, every time the team scores or he does something and scores, you know, he'll feel a sense of pride that some of the other players might not. But that's purely because for them, like, it's another game in a career of maybe 1,000 matches. But for him, every single one will count for now.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could see when he scored against Sevilla. I mean, that celebration. He was emotional walking off. Obviously, the fans shouting "Rico, Rico" to him as he walked down.
It's nice.
That stuff, man. That's just every now and then in football. Obviously, football. It's
nice. Yeah,
you get that little glimpses of humanity every now when they seep through into it and stuff like that. I don't know. Football can be, unfortunately, have a relatively, a sordid side at times, and there's a lot of money going around football. That's fine. A lot they've earned it, but sometimes you forget that there's humans at the heart of it. And when you see those little moments where Rico Lewis runs off celebrating, you're like, that is what makes you,
he's doing what you would do. He's doing exactly what you would do if you had the chance to do what he did. You know what I mean?
I always sit there I never made it as a footballer or anything like that, but I always sit there thinking, when you see players celebrate like that, like, I would have been like that every single goal, just there. Like, Bernardo's a hype man like that. People go for it celebrations wise, and like, your celebrations, like, you didn't score many, did you?
Oh, crap, I was crap, mate. I scored I think it was either 16 or 17, but the first one came after 3 years of playing, so I thought I was never going to score a goal. Yeah, so I just went berserk. I was like just blowing kisses, jumping up and down, everything. And then as you get older, you sort of like, you try and be a bit cooler. I would jump in the air, do a little fist bump, land. And then for some of my teammates, because I like just have my arms out, everyone comes and rushes towards me for a big hug. Like, that's nice. The key thing, really, and everyone should keep a lookout for this. Yeah, especially, it's fine at City, but other places. If you want to know who's liked and who's not liked, see how many people come to celebrate with someone after they scored. Really? Because some people will go and you walk over and get a pat on the back, whereas for others, you just like bear hugging them, throwing them to the floor. That's the key difference. That look they do and
they walk over. Like, I never got that as a football fan. When you see a team score a goal and everyone looks solemn afterwards, like, is that because it's usually like there's something going on there or something like that?
Yeah, there's either something going on, or they know that they're going to be criticised for celebrating.
Because it's like so 6 goals.
Yeah, exactly. But it's always good to see youngsters scoring, because then everyone wants to pile in and really try and bring back that sense of joy. Because then you seeing it from the sidelines, the same as you seeing it on the field. Like, somebody young scoring and sort of starting their career feels amazing for sure.
Slight detail, because you touched on the sense of joy thing, and this could be absolute baseless and just fan nonsense. But I've got a general theory that in football, teams can play better. Well, it makes a lot of sense, really, but I feel like sometimes like that, when there's a joy in football, when you have that chemistry on certain plays, for example, this seems to me, based off just general behind the scenes footage, whatever, like there's a connection between Jack Grealish and Phil Foden. They seem to be good mates, and my theory. It could be nonsense, but there's an idea that I feel like sometimes City lack a little bit of joy in the football recently because it feels a little bit more formulaic and so on. The other day we saw when we played Chelsea, like Phil Foden was trying flicks again or whatever. Even Rodri did a backheel flick. I've not seen that in ages, and like there's sometimes the vibes a bit important in football, if you know what I mean. Like, get it a little bit of like expression on the pitch. Can that come from having just your mates around you? I guess to an extent.
Yeah, you certainly can. But then there's certain people within the team who will always be closer with, say, some than others. Yeah. And it's not to say that they don't like each other or anything, because that's definitely not the case. But in listening to, say, Jack Grealish's interview after the first Chelsea game, he was talking about how he's really good friends with Riyad and they're having these chats on a bench. That's like great insight. He's like, Riyad, oh, you coming on? And I said, yeah, you're coming as well. Oh, am I? Oh, you know what I mean? Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, that's the human nature of it. And I think as well, you've got, Bernardo Silva, friends with John Stones, and this guy's friends with that guy. And even though the 11 of you don't go around basically showboating, you still enjoy it. But one thing about City, and I think this is a perspective which is sometimes lost, especially in the media, is that most teams you play against will give you their best game of the whole season, because that's arguably one of their biggest games of the whole season. So in those matches, City, some people believe City just win just because they're better. They win because they're better in attack, defense, and they work as hard, if not harder, than the opposition.
Yeah.
And when you're working hard, working hard doesn't necessarily bring joy unless it's like your last-ditch tackle to stop somebody from scoring a goal or a last-minute winner. You know what I mean? Like those sorts of battles. Or say the game against Fulham when Cancelo got sent off. That performance there was incredible. Yeah. And they're high-fiving each other because every single one of them's known that like they've worked as hard as humanly possible against the odds and found a result with the last kick of the game, basically. So from the joy standpoint, it's joyous when you're winning comfortably, but because it's the Premier League, very rarely are you winning comfortably.
Yeah.
And if you offer too much to the opposition in terms of seeing like you're just comfortable, before you know it, you can get a punch in the mouth, and then the whole narrative changes around the whole game. And before you know it, how do you find momentum when you've just lost it?
One thing I often see, and it sort of bugs me even though I'm not a player, like there's a tendency sometimes for people to look for reasons why the team doesn't do well, and we know this Manchester City side, they're a bunch of elite professionals. They are going to work hard pretty much every single game, but there tends to be a lazy excuse. And you see it with a lot of punditry, unfortunately, as well, where it's like, oh, they didn't win, they mustn't have tried. They're not trying hard enough. Does that drive you mad as a player? Because I can imagine that would bug the shit out of me. I really would. Because you see it so much. It's just such a throwaway excuse where like you didn't win, so you mustn't have tried hard enough.
So bear with me on this, okay? So I've been on quite a few broadcasts in recent times, and some of the opinions I've been hearing off air from certain people, not many, but certain people, like my jaw was on the floor. But because I'm sort of respectful, I sort of question it to try and draw it out, to try and figure out what exactly they're trying to say. Yeah. And there was somebody who was saying that City, for example, against Brentford were arrogant, and that's why they lost.
What does that even mean?
But I thought, I know, but the person that said it was like an ex-player, and I thought like, sometimes I believe people project, and maybe during their career, they approach the game in an arrogant manner. But this City team, when they get 90 plus points every season, how do you do that unless you've got the right mentality and attitude to get through it?
To take them seriously.
They respect every opponent. They had a bad day that day, and Brentford had a superb day. From a matchup standpoint, you couldn't really deal with Ivan Toney, couldn't really deal with some of the runners in behind. But that's the matchup that Brentford have given to teams. And lo and behold, they played well against Spurs. They beat Liverpool. I think they've maybe lost one game at home all season, perhaps none. Like, Brentford are a good side, and they played particularly well that day. So when they said, it was arrogant, I was like, you've missed the point. Because even if you did have this mentality of arrogance, thinking you're just going to roll over, this team's going to roll over, within the first few minutes of every game, the tone is set. If you think it's going to be an easy game, before you know it, you realize, like, a team is mid-table in the Premier League. Let's put it into context. That's the top of the footballing pyramid in England. This is the 10th best team in the whole country. Yeah. And you think that those players thought, well, we're playing flipping dog and duck of Ashton or whatever, and this is what it is.
Don't write dog and duck, man. Good team, man. They got potential.
I know. But it was frustrating because as a broadcaster, you can question, say, something happens from a performance standpoint, but never question someone's attitude because you never know. And the moment that goes onto a player, they can never talk out of that because people say, well, I believe that's why you lost.
No,
You're
I agree.
stupid.
I agree. I think it's harsh
You know
because
what I mean?
you don't get a chance to respond either often, do they? And like
Yeah.
I try, and I'm just a fan, but even I try and just not speculate about attitude and whatever, because it's you don't know, you just don't know, and like
Yeah,
it's not
exactly.
fair because then it becomes a narrative and it sticks on them, and like these are like do you know what? I saw it with Cole Palmer recently. He's lazy, like. Cole Palmer would not be playing football for Guardiola if he was lazy. It's literally that's the most. Do you know what it is? It's because he looks his natural gait where he holds himself is he's laconic and he glides around the pitch and people go he's lazy like because he doesn't look like intense in the way he runs.
I know, and that's just stupid because that perception thing is massive, but it always tends to be looking for a perception thing for a negative. The only time I can think of an exception of positive for it was, and this is how stupid it can be. When I was younger, there was I was playing reserves. I think I was still in the first team at City, about to play in a couple of reserve games. I was speaking to my agent at the time.
Yeah,
he was telling me a story about like a senior player who was playing reserves and stuff. And he had a few people come down to watch him to see if they'd sign him. And they came and they just watched him in the warm-up. And they said because he was so serious in the warm-up, they knew his attitude was right. So they signed him. Like he could have been crap in the game. But instead, they looked at his body language jumping up and down and stupidness like that. Like some people are just very calm. Some people just lead by example and exude the sort of confidence that others need. Whereas others, they need to run around like headless chickens and appear like they're doing something. But realistically, they're doing nothing. Yeah. So what would you rather have? Someone that's impactful that doesn't necessarily suit your eye, or someone that isn't impactful but is just going around basically being Robbie Savage? You figure it out for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. What have you made? I want to talk about Cole Palmer briefly because we're on the academy train here a little bit. I've been sort of defending him a little bit because there's an idea that he's not really often made the right decisions. So far he's given the ball away a little bit here and there, or maybe not made the pass. Is it something that you've noticed? I've got a general theory that, people say, oh, yeah, but his decision-making shouldn't be affected by being on the left. I actually think it does, personally. I think if you play out position, your whole judgment can be misaligned. You can, your familiar patterns. And essentially what I'm getting, I guess he usually plays on the right. And the angles in football, when you're working from the right and you're looking from the left, they are different, aren't they? And can it affect your game to the point where you just look almost unrecognisable to an extent?
I think it can for certain people. It's not necessarily the same for everyone, but it's quite rare, I think, to have people who are just as effective on one side as they are the other. And I think maybe some of it's to do with being a lefty as well. But we shouldn't forget, he is young. And the look you have on the
fine, but it's just
he has been fine. But this is the time where it's unfortunate. Being at City is a gift and a curse because you can be fine, but if you're fine and everyone else is great, then you look bad. Which is why at times, people have been so critical of like a Mahrez or a Grealish and so on and so forth. But it's because someone else is either playing ahead of them and they're on fire, or someone's on the other side and they're on fire. So before you know it, it's like, well, if he's doing this, why aren't you doing that? But he is a good player. But the whole left to right type thing, it does make a huge difference. Like I played with Craig Bellamy, and I remember
such a good player, by the way.
He literally said to one of the managers, he said, I cannot play on the right-hand side. He said, I cannot do it. This was him at the age of 31, 32. He said, I can play on the left fine, but there's no point putting me on the right-hand side because I don't know how to do it. The look on the field is completely different. Like the movements, whether you come inside, whether you sort of go down the line, it can really affect some people. And maybe for Cole, as it stands, being on that right-hand side does suit him because every position is different. Like, what would Jack Grealish be like on the right-hand side? Here's a player that will come inside. So if he goes on the right, does that mean that he'll come inside onto his left? Probably not. Yeah. You know what I mean? So before you know it, his whole game's transformed. But I don't think Cole's not a bad player. He might not be in the best of form right now, but the fact he's still being selected suggests to me that he's doing enough in training to know that, he's capable of playing. And I hope he finds his form and people can then sort of, just have to delete all those tweets which they put out saying that you can't do it on one side or whatever.
And that's ultimately it, isn't it? I guess the fans don't really see 90% of what makes a selection. We just don't see it, do we? And probably even a higher percentage than that. And I guess Guardiola just wouldn't pick him if he wasn't good enough, or he wasn't. Because we know that, don't we? Because Guardiola's got a history of just not picking young players if they're not good enough.
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously, it feels like right now actually is a potential, not a turning point for the academy as such, but sort of out of nowhere, it felt like Guardiola's getting a lot of criticism for never using young players. And now there's Phil Foden, there's Rico Lewis, there's Cole Palmer. That's good, right? That's obviously a positive thing. And is that a healthy amount? I mean, would you expect to see that many, or maybe less or more?
That again that's a really good question. I think it's a good one because it depends on what the club is and what state of play they're in. Like for example, like when you're trying to win everything, even from a fan standpoint, there's a point where you want to see academy players. Then there's a point when you want to see the strongest team humanly possible.
Yeah.
So will a player get a chance to develop if you need to win the next 5 games to win a Premier League title? The chances are probably not. So you could have somebody who is very good, but until, like, say for Rico, for example, if City will obviously rotate, but if they want a team that rotated, like say Arsenal, although their team's a bit younger, like Arteta doesn't really want to rotate. He
No.
wants to play the same team over and over and over. But it just so happens that some of the players in that team did come from the academy. But that's what it's going to be. And those guys perform such a high standard that even if they drop a little bit, they're still at that moment in time better than someone who's in the academy. When I look at myself coming through the academy and lots of others, we had opportunity, but we didn't really have expectation individually or collectively.
Yeah.
We were trying to maybe finish mid-table. We're free from relegation. So now a manager can get the tap on the shoulder to say, well, maybe it's time to start blooding some youngsters. But especially in the second half of the season, who's going to give Pep Guardiola a tap on the shoulder and say, there's a kid who's doing well for the 23s who we think should be starting down the middle?
Yeah.
Like if you were, worst example, if you were a number 9 now in Man City's academy and you've got Erling Haaland playing, who's currently playing ahead of a World Cup winner in Julian Alvarez, like what we saying? Like what do we want? It's like, is a fan going to say you need to stop playing Erling and start bringing through some of the youngsters, or will they say we need to get as many goals as humanly possible? And so go with whatever brings you
and
there.
Especially when we've been a false nine as well for 2 years and won the league, it's like how do you even deal with that as a youngster at Man City striker? Like, can that be demoralising a little bit?
Yeah, it can be for some. It can be for some. But the fact is, like, as is the case with just academy football in general, the end goal doesn't always have to be purely playing 200 games for the team that you come through. Like, there's still players who are developing and getting better and better and better. And even if they don't play for City right now, like, to put it into context again, I'm pretty sure he came from the academy. But like Eddie Nketiah for Arsenal.
Yeah.
So he's filling at the moment for Jesus, but I didn't even realize he's only 2 years younger than Jesus. He's the oldest member of their front line currently. He's 6 months younger than
he's 23.
Odegaard.
Wow, I just looked. I thought he was.
There you go.
He's 24 in May as well, so I thought he was like 20.
There you go. That's the psychology of it all. But he's an important player for the football club, and those important players will be kept on for as long as they can be. So just because you're not playing at 18, 19 doesn't mean you're not of value to the club. I think he's played nearly 100 games for Arsenal now. It blows your mind, doesn't it? Because it sounds like
for Arsenal, 115 over
maybe his debut in 2017, mate. 2017. Would you have thought that though, based on the way he's being spoken about?
The narrative in general, the general like,
exactly.
He's a young lad breaking through. Actually, this is his last chance to win the Young Player of the Year.
Exactly.
And that's generous anyway.
He's older than Saka. He's older than Martinelli. He's basically the same age as Odegaard. He's, I think, similar age to Ben White. Older than Saliba.
Yeah.
Like same age as like Tierney. He's not like a young player, but still he's there. And the same thing, I think they've just signed Reece Nelson to a new contract as well. So some of these academy players, if the club can convince them to bide their time, then who knows when they'll get the opportunity. But the fact is they still believe in them. And I think that's something to keep a lookout for City, because you don't, like, for as good as Rico has been to make his debut at 18, maybe the next great academy prospect might be a little bit older, but they will have an impact because they still want him to be around.
I guess that we always presume, and once again, it goes back to City having such a high level that anyone who isn't immediately elite level looks bad, which just isn't true, And I think we presume that for Cole Palmer, who's 20 now, it has to happen now because he's 20s. Foden was already winning leagues and Young Player. No, actually, I guess Cole Palmer could play 15 games for the next 2-3 years and still become a much better player, couldn't he?
If Phil Foden is the bar for like academy talent, you might as well end every academy around England now, because he's not normal. Even if someone said they got him from like Barcelona's academy, the same time got him from Messi, whatever, you'd be like, oh, fair enough. But this is Phil Foden from Man City's academy, Stockport Iniesta, as you called him. So yeah, I wouldn't be too hard on someone that's 20 years of age. I think the fact that Haaland's 22, Alvarez 22 and stuff like that, Foden 21, that will affect people's thinking.
Yeah,
it does make it difficult for you, but we're talking about Haaland being one of the top 3 number 9s in world football.
Number 4 is Julian Alvarez, probably. So exactly.
So you can respect yourself a little bit because it's not all doom and gloom, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree. I think in general, there's age is such a funny one in football because, like, careers aren't linear, are they? They're not all going the same way, and potential can go up and down, and players can have bad seasons. And I look at even Sergio Gomez, and there's this whole, oh yeah, but Zinchenko was great, and we forget that Zinchenko did nothing for a year and a half at City, literally nothing. He was mainly just sat on the bench hanging around, until eventually injuries, and Guardiola said, well, he's here, he's been training with us, he's a good lad, and he, got that chance and made it. But like there's a very immediacy attitude in football. Everything's got to be now, here, you've got to make it right now. But there's nothing wrong, is there, hanging around a squad and playing 10-game season Manchester City's level, because that's a really good team, isn't it?
Do you know what it is? But that's coming from our sort of like blue perspective. I think for some players, say the ones who maybe don't support Man City but are at the academy, they will be thinking about starting a career, because if at the age of 21 you're not currently good enough to start for Man City, there's a good chance you're probably good enough to start for probably 80 to 90% of the teams in the football pyramid. So when people come and say, we want you, we want you, we want you, like, I think it's that sort of bigger picture thinking blue element that makes you stay for longer.
Yeah.
So if Nketiah supports Arsenal, wouldn't be surprised. If Reece Nelson supports Arsenal, wouldn't be surprised. And that can go a long way. But for other people, like, it's just about playing games, because by the time you're 21, 22, like, even as I say with Nketiah, like, he's 23, he's not played a lot. It doesn't feel like he's played that much for Arsenal, but he's still above 100 games. So imagine if he went somewhere else and he played 30, 40 games a season from the age of 18, 19. Like, you can be a far more experienced player, but just not necessarily in the place that you want to be. But, I hope that they stay. Hope they all, like, have a special place for City in their hearts. But if they don't, I understand it, because it's a career. For all we know, the first season, the first team might be the last season, the way that the careers go. Some people retire at 35, some at 40. Like, seeing Phil Jagielka playing at the age of 40 still. But then some people... Playing? He's still playing, my friend. He was playing in the FA Cup for Stoke City away at Hartlepool a couple of days ago. But then for some, they'll retire at 21, 22 and never make a game at all. So, it's just trying to figure out what the right decision is in any moment.
It does feel like it's changed, doesn't it? The average retirement age in general. Do you remember? Like, I remember growing up when it was like, oh, players reach the peak at 30 and they're done by 33 or whatever. That's just not the case anymore, is it? Really, footballers just go on longer, and
they can do if they want to. Because the prime example, you've got Jagielka at 40 still going, but say Gareth Bale at 33 saying he's had enough. But I think for him, he probably had enough 3 years ago.
Yeah, I love Gareth Bale. I absolutely love him. I don't know, something about he's pure. He's an honesty to his game, which I admire. His honesty to where he holds himself, and I really underrate Gareth Bale, despite being rated by pretty much everyone.
Questionably. You say that. I think I could make a case that he's overrated, but I'm not going to today. Yeah, I could make that case, but I'm not going to.
There's always a contrarian.
I'm not going to.
No.
We're just trying to have a balanced discussion about things in life. That's what we do on here.
Go on. I'm curious. Like, this is totally unrelated to this video, but who are your favorite all-time Premier League players other than City ones?
Because
you're the same age as me roughly, so I'm curious to see what you who lit up your life as you.
Well, the last 10 years of Man City obviously creates a huge level of bias towards it. You know. Then you've got times when United were dominant, but we don't really want to discuss that on here, do we? So. You could talk about, say, some of the iconic Chelsea sides, like when they lost one game all season in my first season, 2004-05, where that game was to Man City. That was special. Thanks for the win bonus, Chelsea. But like Gareth Bale in the Premier League, there's a point where it's essentially unplayable.
Yeah.
But the thing about him, because you see all his records and his accolades and 5 Champions Leagues, like, it basically just stops the conversation. And then I say, well, he's probably the best British export ever.
Yeah, I think so too.
But in the same breath, I'm trying to think, who's he up against? And secondly, why doesn't it feel 100% true? And I think it's because of the stuff in the last few years. And this is when, like, the football purist in me comes out. And this is pure snobbery, and I apologize for this. But like Real Madrid are arguably the most iconic club in world football. And people, when they go and play there, it's more than just football. It's a state of life. It's a mentality. But he never felt as if he never felt he chose to be, nor was accepted as a Madridista. Yeah. And from a football purist standpoint, I just wondered why. Like, why would someone go to somewhere so significant but not want to be a significant part of the history beyond the success that exists there? Because it's one of the few football clubs where it's culture as well. And I don't get that, because for all the ability that he had, probably still got more ability in retirement now than probably 99% of all footballers. Like, why was that not for him? And you could say, well, maybe it's because he doesn't really love football and so on. And then that's the thing which breaks some people I know. And it's split down the middle, I think. Because if he did love football, I think he would have done more individually. Like the achievements for Real
Yeah, I
Madrid,
agree.
like he's got some incredible highlights in there, some incredible goals, some big games. But like his legacy there isn't a million miles away because, and this is like really stupid now. I can hear the feedback of people like typing on the keyboards. Like Danny Carvajal, the right back, played in the same amount of games as he did in those finals, and he's got the same accolades and same trophies. But you wouldn't say Danny Carvajal has won all these things and this is how incredible he is. Like Bale provided a lot of
I
highlights,
mean,
but saying those
that
years,
that over a kick goal definitely helps a little bit.
yeah, of course, yeah,
yeah.
of course, because he had those moments. You can never take those away. But interestingly, with that, I don't think in his years playing for Real Madrid, he scored more than 100 goals in La Liga. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that. I think that
See,
he was guilty of not being Ronaldo, which I think was very difficult for him because he was meant to be. He didn't learn the language as well, apparently, which is
that's what I mean. It's so petty. It's like me being a proper football snob, but like that matters to me. Like you're there for a long time.
Can you be that good and not love football though? You know what I mean? Because because surely there has to be well, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
I think things that he loves objectively. You know he loves playing for Wales. Yeah. And you know he loves playing golf because he talks about it a lot. But do you know that he loves playing football in general?
Maybe he doesn't love playing for Madrid. And maybe it's because Madrid is a snobby club as well at the same time, you know?
Yeah, but possibly. Sorry, last point on this. And I know some people don't care because they've made their mind up. Either way, that's fine. Like I can take the argument that he's the best ever, and I can also take the argument that he's not. In all those years he played for Madrid, in the league he played 176 games. And he scored 81 goals. Would you have thought that more would come from somebody who's a 5-time Champions League winner?
It's not a bad record. Yeah, you're right. Injuries, though, didn't help, I guess, a lot, to be fair. Very stop and start, wasn't it, in his career? I agree. Ultimately, but I still think Gareth Bale's a phenomenal footballer.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the thing is, I don't question that.
In terms of
talent, I don't question that.
Stupid.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like his talent was so spectacular that some of the moments that he had, if you turn those into full years, then we're talking about him in the same sort of breath as Ronaldo and Messi. And I think at times,
could have been.
That's the thing there. Yeah. That's the point I'm trying to get to. That's what he could have been.
So
to finish off where he's finished isn't too bad anyway.
Gareth Bale, fraud. You've heard it here first on this video.
Sorry, the Wi-Fi's gone down. I don't know what you said there. Yeah.
To be honest, back onto City. I forgot to mention today actually. Fabrizio Romano has gone.
He's been busy.
He's been busy. But he's saying actually Joshua Wilson-Esbrand is going on loan to Coventry, which is obviously we're talking about the level of getting to City, and they're like Wilson-Esbrand has done pretty well. What have you made of what you've seen of Wilson-Esbrand? Is this the right time for him to go on loan? Because he's 20 years old now, roughly. And he's had a few games. Sergio Gomez is ahead of him, Cancelo as well.
I think it depends really. Depends what messages they're giving out to him as he's leaving. Because so I know James McAtee now, and his loan is one whereby he's gone out and they're constantly watching to see how he's doing, and they're looking forward to bringing him back. I think if Gundogan would have left at the start of the season, then he would have stayed.
Do you reckon?
But yeah, I think that it's not. To be fair, let me just reveal it. It's not that I reckon. I know that's what the plan was. Like he was going to make up that extra midfielder there.
Okay.
But when the change of plan came that Gundogan was staying, then that's essentially the way that it went, and he basically had to go. Well, not had to go, but he basically went. But he went with the pat on the back, like saying, "You're part of our plans." But then there can be loans whereby you're going somewhere and you're still technically on the books. But if 10 first-team players went down, they still wouldn't call you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think it'd be interesting to see for Josh, like, with Gomez there, with Cancelo there, with, say, the really, like, I wanted to say revelation, but it's not a revelation that Dutch international's really good at football. They can play anywhere on the left-hand side, then maybe things are tougher for him. But I'd hope that he's potentially part of their plans longer term, but you just don't know. But from the games which I've seen him play, I think he's done really well. You can see that he's well educated from a footballing standpoint. You can see he's come from a City academy, and maybe going to Coventry and having to sort of play a different style of football, tough it out, but then still show some of those strengths that you've had from playing academy football and being around the players that he has been. Yeah. It's probably going to be better for him. And ultimately, in any loan, you want to come back a better player. Yeah. And whether he comes back a better player and he still doesn't have the opportunity, that would be a shame. But if he comes back a better player and he can show the manager that, then who knows? Maybe he'd be part of the long-term plans.
Just in a comment, which I don't know the context of it at all, Abina said, Nedum, I back you. Next time Klopp goes at you, give it back to him. What's this about? Have you got some beef with Klopp
Mate.
going on?
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
so I was doing some work for ESPN. Shout out to that person. I think they watch ESPN FC or something. But I went to Anfield for the first time. Never been there. I've played there, but never felt the ambience of like playing, of like just watching. And it's for ESPN for their FA Cup game against Wolves. Felt really weird. As weird as it feels like when I go to Old Trafford to work there as well. Really weird. Extra weird.
Do you know what? The slight side thing. I remember at one point, many years ago before I did this, I was told to apply for a job as like a social media person doing some stuff at United, and I know I nearly would have got it. I just couldn't do it. I sound so petty as a City fan. I just couldn't do it. I was like, this was before I even started doing the YouTube stuff as well. Like, how stupid is that? I could have got like a well-paid job at the time when I needed a job as well. Couldn't do it.
But
mad. But like,
don't get me wrong. Like I can speak calmly on air about Man United, Liverpool, whoever, any rival, because it's just at the end of the day for me, a game is just a game between 11 players on each side. It's fine. But I went there, and as we're just about to go live before the show, there's a guy who basically sets everything up, and he says, "Oh yeah, we've got you the flash interview afterwards as well." And he said, "It's with Jurgen Klopp." Now, usually there's a host that's with me, but it's just me and the cameraman.
Okay.
So as he walked away, I said to the cameraman, "Was that a joke or was that serious?" He said, "No, it's yeah, we've got the interview afterwards. You'll be doing it. Yeah, we've Klopp afterwards." I'm like, okay. And this is a guy I've never met before. Yeah. And then the game goes the way it goes. I'm like, okay.
Was this the Wolves game, by the way?
This is the Wolves game that finished 2-2.
How was that?
The crowd, but the crowd was getting like a bit spicy and stuff. So it wasn't like a prime Liverpool game. And then when I'm in the tunnel afterwards, he does all the stuff with like ITV and so on. Then he does like beIN Sports, and you can see he's not in the best of moods. and I am the last interview.
Shock
and
horror.
The last interview is me doing my first interview for ESPN, trying to ask him questions which he's just fielded for the last 10 minutes prior.
Shocking mood as well. Yeah.
Oh, I know. And then he said some stuff about how for some of the players, some of the challenges, they just weren't winning them and so on and so forth. So I tried to try and draw out of him why he thinks that was. And he started explaining, he says, sometimes within football, and he then bases me, I don't know if you've played football before. I was like, I just got sat down.
Do you know who I am, Dim?
Mate. If I said,
what was his career? He didn't have a career, did he?
In fairness to ESPN, they put the career side by side on. But he did win one trophy, like a Bad Regatta Cup or something.
The what cup?
Exactly. But the beauty of it was like, if he was in a better mood, I would have probably joked about it. But because he wasn't in the best of moods, I just stood there and just took it. And it got clipped up. ESPN battered me with it.
He bitched you, unfortunately, man.
1,000%. It's like, I'm friends with your skipper. Yeah, I played it before. I got an assist on the field there. Yeah, if he was in a better mood, I would have done something with it. But instead, I just had to just sit there and own it and just try and get a bit more content out of him. So yeah, it was a nice moment.
Think of the numbers you could have had, man, on Twitter. You know what I mean? All over the internet, you could have.
I'm getting numbers already, Paul. Don't worry about that. I'm getting numbers just for the fact I got sat down 400 and something games, and I still got sat down just like that. Asking if I've ever played football before. Never mind.
A lovely way to end this video, though. Unfortunately for you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, it was great. It was funny. I didn't know that happened, but next time you'll be prepared for him. Next time you get to see him.
Yeah,
just have your Wikipedia page printed out. You know what I mean?
No. I'll come out with a shirt, my friend. A worn shirt with my flipping name on the back, bit of mud on it, everything like that. So, this is from when I played at Wembley. I don't know if you know, but yeah, this is.
Did you do much Wembley playing Jurgen Klopp? How was your career at, I don't know, in the
to be fair, it's kicked on. But I think as a manager, he's probably got my number. But
he's done all right. But he's not been on this channel. You're chatting to me. You know what I mean? So who really?
There you go. Exactly. There you go.
Who really wins Jurgen?
There you go.
And Jurgen's a little bitch, so who cares? That's my opinion, not Nedum's. Don't worry. Great manager, but just a bad loser. But that's football, isn't it? There's a lot of bad losers in football, and I guess there's nothing wrong with that in a way, because
Yeah, of course. Yeah. It means you want to win. Let's
exactly.
Say
that. Yeah. Nedum, thanks very much for coming on, man. We didn't actually answer the question of the video, which I just thought is how good could Rico Lewis be? I mean, can you make it to the top broadly? I mean,
if you can play at Man City, and if you can play at Man City for like week in week out, and have a manager like Pep Guardiola say he really changes the way that we can play and makes people play better. Like if you didn't associate that with Rico Lewis, you'd think you're associating it with like Kevin De Bruyne or something. So the fact that you can be spoken about in that manner means anything is possible. And hopefully, as I say, continues to work hard, figures out that in time, once people know what he's like, they'll try and play him differently. But if he adapts, continues to improve, stays humble, like I think we could be watching him in a blue shirt for many, many years to come.
And there's literally no consequence to this question. It's just a guess. It's 10th of January right now, so we've got a whole calendar year. Does he make his England debut by the end of this year?
Yes,
I think so too.
I think he does. Because Gareth Southgate's in power and he likes to go for younger players to play, I think, I think he will. If he was another manager before that, I'd say no. But Gareth Southgate will give him a chance, I think.
I actually agree. I think he'll get. I think you can't not if you play that many games for Man City potentially, and what to say. And who knows, man? Who knows? Hopefully, we'll see plenty more of Rico Lewis in Manchester City shirt. Nedum, thanks very much for coming on, mate. An absolute pleasure as always. Nedum, as Eclipse just said, the best panelist on ESPN. They're not my words; they're Eclipse's, and it's probably true. I reckon it was. Nedum, have a wonderful day, mate.
Cheers, and you, boss.
In a bit.
No worries.
Cheers, guys, for watching this video. Please do like, subscribe, all the usual stuff, and I'll catch you very, very soon in a bit. Cheers.